Mark Rogers TV knocking out the top 10 bowl games from 2015 and 16. Keep in mind that New Year's Day and New Year's Eve, all the biggest games, the two playoff games and the major bowl games were all a disaster. Ohio State, Notre Dame, the closest game at 16 points, and that really wasn't that competitive. So we've got to go to the other tier bowl games to find the best. So it's not necessarily the most important games or the highest scoring games. I know people love offense and they gravitate necessarily. Best games means highest score, but that's not necessarily the case. Sometimes that just means a whole lot of bad defense and bad football. All right, top 10 for 2015 and 16. We start in Nashville at the Music City Bowl. Texas A&M, Louisville, Cardinals win at 27-21. Coming out party for freshman quarterback Lamar Jackson. He totaled 453 yards in total offense, 226 rushing, and 4 touchdowns. That's a bowl record and also a career high. Kind of ironic that to start the season, Louisville kind of scattered at quarterback with Jackson in the mix among 4 quarterbacks, but he definitely separated himself as the best and the guy for the future for Bobby Petrino's team, while Texas A&M in great shape at that point, with Kyle Allen coming back after a stellar second half to 2014 in his freshman campaign, and their backup, a 5-star, in Kyler Murray. 3 months later, Murray, Allen both transferred. And so the third-string quarterback, Josh Hubenek, got the call, and he looked shaky most of the game. Now, it's a pretty boring game until late. Hubenek hit Christian Kirk with a touchdown pass with 5 minutes left to play to make it 27-21. Aggies get the ball back. They march back down the field. Hubenek finally getting in rhythm, and he hit Kirk on another pass that got the Aggies seemingly down to the 6-yard line to go for the game-winning touchdown with less than 2 minutes left to play, but replay showed that Kirk trapped the ball, and the Aggies could not convert on the 4th down. So Louisville hangs on over Texas A&M in what turned out to be a nice fourth quarter, 27-21. At number 9, we go to the first day of postseason play, the Camellia Bowl, with Appalachian State defeating Ohio 31-29 on a last-second field goal by Zach Maddox. That capped a 17-point comeback from 24-7 down by App State as the Mountaineers complete a season in which they win 11 games. They become the first Sun Belt Conference team to win 11 games. They finished 11-2, and also with their first FBS postseason win, they defeat the Bobcats 31-29. Number 8, Miami Beach Bowl. Very exciting in 2014 for the game that went into overtime, but also for the game that and the melee that ensued on the field after the game. Now, this one exciting game didn't have the overtime, it didn't have the fisticuffs after the game. But Western Kentucky defeats South Florida in an entertaining style game, 45-35. National passing leader Brandon Doty, who led the country in pass efficiency, yardage, and touchdowns, had another big day, 461 through the air and 3 touchdowns. Quarterback Quentin Mack on the other side for the South Florida Bulls responded with 381 total yards and 3 touchdowns as the Bulls really came back from 2 disappointing campaigns to save Willie Taggart's job with 9 wins this season, but couldn't get the postseason win. There were 1,209 yards of total offense in this game. South Florida led it 14-0 before Western Kentucky came back, and they also got to within 38-35 with 3 minutes left to play, but couldn't complete what was the comeback. Western Kentucky over South Florida, game number 8 at the Miami Beach Bowl. All right, number 7, Independence Bowl, Virginia Tech, known for defense and special teams under Frank Beamer, ironically, win Beamer's last game, number 238 of his career, 55-52 over Tulsa. It should have been easy. This was the biggest point spread of the bowl season at 14 points, and Virginia Tech led it 24 points and 21 points at different stages of the game. Had to hang on in this one after leading 52-31 in the third quarter. Tulsa put on quite a show late in the game to take it within a 3-point game, and also got the ball back, drove it to midfield before a sack ended the game for Virginia Tech and kept Frank Beamer's heart ticking. 1,161 total yards in this game. Isaiah Ford became the first Virginia Tech wide receiver in the history of the school to gain 1,000 yards on the strength of 227 through the air in this one, 55-52 Vatek over Tulsa. That's our number 7 game. At number 6, we go to the first day of the bowl season, Las Vegas Bowl, and what turned out to be an exciting game didn't look like it in the first quarter. The Holy War, a game much anticipated, not just from those two fan bases, but across college football, two very competitive teams, Utah and BYU, and it was quickly 35-0 before the end of the first quarter, as BYU turned it over 5 consecutive times, some freakish type deflections, batted balls, 2 pick sixes, and the Utes led at 35-0. Snoozer, turn the game off, go to something else. All right. Tanner Mangum led back the Cougars with 315 yards passing and 2 touchdowns. They got it within 35-28 with 5 minutes left to play. And Utah had done nothing on offense, virtually the entire game. So it looked like the Cougs would get it back and possibly be able to mount a last drive to tie the game, get it into overtime. But Utah mounted a ground game in the last 4 minutes, kept the ball, and kept it away from Mangum and company, and Utah hung on to win the Holy War, the latest version, 35-28. Game number 5, the Russell Athletic Bowl, a game that many of us looked forward to as 2 of the top 12 teams in the nation got together with Baylor and North Carolina. Okay, how did the Bears do it without their first and second string quarterbacks, without their 1,300-yard rusher, Shock Linwood, without Corey Coleman, maybe the best wide receiver in college football? They turned to the running game. They basically played a veer-style offensive attack, threw the ball 12 or 13 times, ran for 645 yards. How did North Carolina not stop that? They knew it was coming. Thomas Jefferson came off the bench to run for 299 yards. Not that he was completely rusting and growing dust on the bench. He had run for over 700 yards this season, but took over for Shock in running for 299 and 3 touchdowns. Again, Baylor's number 1 offense for most of the season, shut down because of the injuries to the aforementioned players, came back in a big way in the bowl game, defeating North Carolina 49-38. That's our game number 5. Okay, number 4, we go to the Cactus Bowl. Final score tells you so much about this one. It was the final bowl game of the bowl season. West Virginia over Arizona State, 43-42. Skyler Howard, the much maligned Skyler Howard for West Virginia, 532 yards passing, 5 touchdowns, threw the game winner with just about 2 minutes left to play. Arizona State under Mike Bergovici, 418 yards and 4 touchdowns of his own, brought it back to midfield, needed 1 10 or 12-yard completion to get back in field goal range and take a shot at the win. Couldn't get it done. 1,196 yards of total offense in this one. Mountaineers over the Sun Devils, 43-42 at the Cactus Bowl, game number 4. Game number 3, we go to the Pinstripe Bowl and a couple of basketball schools. In Duke and Indiana, Blue Devils win it in OT, 44-41. Was it good or was it not good? Indiana place kicker Griffin Oakes certainly argued that it was good. The last-second field goal that would have forced a second overtime, it went way over the upright and may have gone just inside the upright, but the referees ruled that it went outside the right upright and that it could not be reviewed. And so it was Ross Martin, one of the best kickers in the country, converting previously, that decided this one. Indiana broke free in the fourth quarter, typically held a 1-score lead behind Nate Sudfeld's 389 yards passing and Divine Redding's 227 on the ground. But Duke brought it down the field. They scored with 41 seconds left to play to tie the game, but Indiana drove right back down the field, but missed a 56-yarder as time elapsed. So not the best of games for Griffin Oakes. He could have won it in regulation, albeit a tough 56-yarder, and then he could have tied the game in overtime. But Duke wins it. Blue Devils' first bowl victory since 1961, 44-41, game number 3. Okay, game number 2 only had a combined 44 points, but I enjoyed it, and it's my list, so here it is. 2 national brands, 2 traditional powers, USC, Wisconsin in the Holiday Bowl. This game actually had defenses that could play, including the number 1 ranked defense in the country, Wisconsin, top 3 in all the major categories, putting the clamps for the most part on the USC dynamic players on the outside, Juju Smith-Schuster and Adoree Jackson, and Wisconsin gets it done over USC 23-21, but it wasn't that pedestrian. There were some exciting plays on the offensive side as well. Raphael Gaglianone with the field goal with 2:27 left to play to give the Badgers the win. Tanner McEvoy, this could have been very unfortunate, ran for a touchdown from about 60 yards out, replacing the injured Joel Stave with just a few minutes left to play. He was clearly in bounds, scored the touchdown for the Badgers' lead, but he was ruled out of bounds, and they even missed it on the replay. I don't know that it was replayed, but Wisconsin scored anyway, and then held USC on two different drives in the final 2.5 minutes as Jack Cichy came off the bench. He was disciplined and suspended for the first half. He came off the bench and had 3 sacks in the second half to help preserve the win for the Badgers, 23-21. I enjoyed that one, the Holiday Bowl in San Diego. And number one, we're not including the national championship game. It's not a bowl game. Number one, we go to the Alamo Bowl. So the final day of bowl play with West Virginia, Arizona State at the Cactus Bowl, and TCU, Oregon, Alamo Bowl saved the bowl season. TCU 47, Oregon 41, 3 overtimes. You know the story by now. Josh Doxson already injured. Trevon Boykin suspended. TCU without any offense, looked to be completely demoralized without its 2-star players, down 31-0. But Vernon Adams Jr. injured in the second quarter. TCU mounts a tremendous rally, and they come back to force overtime, 31-all, and win it. Brian Kohlhausen, 351 yards passing and 3 touchdowns. Gary Patterson changes his shirt at halftime, puts on the solid purple, and TCU puts it on Oregon, 47-41 in 3 overtimes. That's our number one bowl game of the 2015 and 16 postseason. Now we would like to hear from you. Let's get your list of the top bowl games for this bowl season right here on Mark Rogers TV.